Hello everyone, and a warm welcome to this Power Hour session hosted by Harbinger Group. My name is Ajay, and I am your host and presenter today. I thank each one of you for making time to join this session, and hopefully it's going to be fruitful at the end of the day after our presentations are done. For those of you who are joining the Power Hour for the first time, maybe, this is a series of interactive roundtable sessions that Harbinger does at frequent intervals, where people from the industry, join together in terms of presenting various ideas, experiences, best practices, insights, and on a given topic. In one of those series, I think today's seminar or today's Power Hour is focused on how technology will help shape future for HR. So before we begin, just some housekeeping tips.
Welcome to Harbinger's flagship interactive webinar, Power Hour.
Ensure you have selected the right speaker for audio output. Test your speaker to ensure it is working fine from the audio settings option on the lower left corner of your screen. If necessary, dial in using phone.
Let's tune in.
Lovely. So now with that, it's time for some introductions. My name is Ajay, and I'm the Director of Business Development for Harbinger. I have about 20 years of experience in selling software and also account management. Traveling and meeting people is my hobby. And in my current engagement as an HR tech specialist or an expert, I'm glad that I'm able to help many startups, ISVs, mid-sized tech outfits to actually achieve a successful product roadmap, and by using an appropriate technological proposition. I think, and in today's session, I'm joined by Mitch Zenger, who is the Senior Vice President of Workforce Strategy at M Squared Consulting. We're looking forward, Mitch, to your session on teamwork becoming the new game plan for HR.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, thank you, Mitch. So actually, when we decided to do this session, around future for HR, technology was always on the forefront. We've been actually thinking about how we need to maneuver and what we need to really showcase when we are talking about the future. And we all came to a conclusion saying that future cannot be presented in isolation. So we said, okay, fine, let's take some reference of the back history in terms of how things have moved in the industry as a whole, and what are the takeaways, what is the current scenario, and how we need to move forward. And that's how we thought that the future would be more holistic and more encompassing of all attributes and all considerations, including the challenges and the opportunities. I will just move to my next slide. Couldn't start talking about future, without mentioning the statement by Peter Drucker: the best way to predict the future is to create it. And of course, why not? What we have in store for you today is, how the environment has been changing, and how are the new Millennials and Gen Z contributing, and what are they bringing on table for us? Automation and transformation of workforce, teamwork, the new trend in HR that Mitch will cover, the employee experience, not to forget, and of course, both the onboarding and offboarding experience, and future of work. So these are the things that we will try and cover during the session. You're free to post your questions in the chat box. We will try and answer them, maybe not now, towards the end of the seminar, and we'll try and cover and see how many questions we could take. So what are we talking about here? The environment, perhaps, the way we look at it has been considered as a pre-pandemic and a post-pandemic. So pre-pandemic, everything was all right. All people visited offices, and the discourse was normal. post-pandemic, of course, after the lockdown, we've seen the lockdown in itself. Then we said, okay, fine, there is a semi-opening up of avenues where people came in a hybrid model, and that's become the new normal, as on date. Why not technology? Why technology at this point in time? Of course, just because of the simple reason that there is a hybrid model where people are working in remote and they're working, from offices at a given point in time. So what this brings to the table, of course, is a lot of uncertainty, vulnerability, complexity, and ambiguity. So how do you deal with this, and what impact does it have purely on the technology, on employers, and of course on employees? Just taking a step back in terms of how technology has moved over years. So we're all aware of the 4 industrial revolutions that we have had. The first one being typically the mechanization of things in terms of production. Then came electricity, power, and the advent of assembly. The third came with electronics and computers. And of course, the one era that we are living, all of us are living in, is the advent and the era of internet. With internet came things like mobile. With internet came things like robotics, data, and artificial intelligence. And then, of course, virtual reality. So all of that encompassing. So I think we've all seen the, how the entire industrial revolution has happened. That's on technology. How the employers have moved, perhaps, is purely from a perspective of, if you take into consideration, domestic businesses have moved to global businesses. Profit-oriented businesses have moved to efficiency-oriented businesses. Traditional management has moved to professional management, and typically less technical has become more technical at every stage, whether it's at the entry stage or the mid-level or the management level. And of course, less management qualification has moved to more management qualification. So that's on the employer side of the story. Now, how does it really translate for employees? Now, while on one hand, all of us have been discussing about the age of employees going up, and globally, where we said that, okay, fine, the population in terms of with higher age is just going up, but then not to forget there is a huge influx of millennials and Gen Z, making their inroads into the industry. So in fact, the predictions are like they are going to be 75% by 2025. And we've heard the rhetoric in terms of, for decades of preparing for these millennials, in terms of trying to see how we are going to really train them. What is it that they're bringing along with them, whether they're bringing a lot of technical advancement, they're bringing a lot of technical know-how, and, they're bringing those gadgets and platforms at the end of the day. So, we're trying to build all of that. So while we're talking about the general age of employees going up, I think it is best in our interest that we are prepared for most of these challenges, with millennials and Gen Z becoming an integral part and more so a bigger portion into the industry. While we spoke about what technology has, what the employers would have, and what the employees would look like, I think we cannot forget the various platforms or various tools and gadgets that we are all talking about. I think with the penetration of mobile globally, it's become imperative for most of us to really embrace various applications, integrated and shared platforms, the social and consumer applications or apps, AI and automation. And of course, with all this technology all out there on internet, cybersecurity takes its, it takes the center stage. So coming to the analytics revolution, I think managing information overload. So when we are talking about information overload, I think there's enough data out there, and each company or each organization is trying to make that data, one, available, second, controlled, and third, in terms of using that data for meaningful decision making within that organization. So therefore, moving to artificial intelligence and big data. And of course, for what is in store for HR, it's purely the self-service portals and the self-service applications that companies are building today for their employees. Now, how do we look at all of this? I think it's imperative to see, what's whether employees, today's employees are, even if they have lesser amount of domain knowledge, we certainly look for employees who are, more technically skilled in, where they know one, platform or the other. They are abreast with the next gen technological advancements and all of that. So I think, this few surveys, this is picked from the PwC survey, of course. So 24% of the employees think employers think that finding employees with the right skill set remains the biggest challenge over the next 5 years. 50% of employees will need reskilling in next 5 years. 85% of Americans believe that digital skills will be more important for success in today's workplace. And according to a study, of course, digital skills is predicted to increase by 12% by 2024. Now, 94% of business leaders expect employees to acquire new skills for their jobs. So what is in store for us is that, of course, technology cannot be left behind. You may have people coming from various walks of life, from various demographies, and still you will say that technology is going to be the most paramount factor for consideration. Therefore, automation is going to become the buzzword in terms of how new tools are moving well beyond traditional email and productivity, in terms of how engagement and feedback applications are going to be used within the organization, how performance management is going to be tracked, traced, and retrieved within an organization, how well-being apps are going to be pushed, whether they are third-party apps or they are inbuilt apps by an organization, how they're going to push for employee welfare, and employee service platforms, of course, the way companies are going to look at those. So this is what, in the nutshell, as an introduction that we had, or I had rather, and it's about time to introduce Mitch. Thank you, Mitch, once again for joining in. And Mitch is the Senior Vice President, like I mentioned, of Workforce Strategy at M Squared Consulting, Solomon Edwards Group owned company. Mitch is an author, speaker, founder, and a future of work advocate, helping companies understand how to embrace change and build ethical systems that create trusting connections and communities between people, where everyone is treated with dignity, privacy, and respect, of course. His work focuses on establishing transparent people analytics that help create great places to work. Mitch has consulted over 30 years now, supporting large technology firms like Cisco, ServiceNow, Siemens, Western Digital, and Adobe as they define their workforce strategies. He clearly understands the complex challenges that organizations face as they recruit employees, train them with new skills, track their performance, provide feedback, and motivate them to continue to deliver value to their organizations. Over to you, Mitch.
Thank you. Thanks for that intro. Appreciate it, and looking forward to our conversation today.
Thank you.
So your intro slides were great. They kind of lead right into kind of trends and changes and all that's happening in the workforce today. And I do think we're going to continue to see pretty significant and dramatic changes continuing. And at some point, obviously, that's going to significantly impact all of the tech stack, which is where you guys play a very significant role in helping companies, transform their HRIS systems and all their HR tech applications and connect them all together and everything else. So looking forward to this conversation. I'd love to share just a couple of insights and things that I've been writing and that kind of stuff around HR technology. So I sent over a few slides and would love to kind of talk through some of those, if that makes sense. So you almost said this exactly, but the workforce is changing. We've gone from this very old scientific management and you refer to them as kind of the different industrial revolutions that we've gone along. This is a little bit or connected to that. This is where our, the work itself that people do has changed. When we talk about the Industrial Revolution, sort of the first wave was automation. How do we get people to make, do one little single task really, really well and really, really fast and really, really cheap? And it was all around optimizing that. As we've evolved work, what I see happening is this major shift where we've gone from sort of individual tasks to, larger scale objectives, to how do we get, precision and quality systems and all of that in place. But where we're going is, work is getting a whole lot more complex, and we need to be focused a whole lot more on teamwork, team skills, people working together, and all of those kinds of activities. So as work is changing, and as you also shared a slide similar to this, people are changing, so we're seeing, I think, a big shift in how people feel about work, the expectations they have. I think part of this is just cultural changes going on. Part of this is, as you shared, the millennials coming into the workforce and them wanting to have a little bit more of say in what goes on. I think this is also driven by education. More and more people are becoming much more educated, where employers and their leadership is, almost have similar education backgrounds and everything else. And so employees want to have more control over the work that they do. They want to understand what they're good at and their strengths. And most importantly, they want diversity. They want to be around people that have different opinions and attitudes. And so in the, this concept of teamwork is, how do we get diverse, different thoughts and ideas and people to work well together to, leverage each other's best skills and best capabilities. So aligned very well with what you were saying. Next slide. And this one is, this slide talks about kind of the control that leadership has had over the workforce over the years. So I think if you go back, in the olden days, 100 years ago, it was all about senior leadership, senior executives, directing work, directing tasks, getting people to, be as efficient as possible. And we kind of evolved to then, how do we get groups of people to contribute the most? And then we put in all these quality systems, the Toyota production systems and Six Sigma and all these kinds of things. And it was about quality, consistency. But all of these activities were being led by leadership. Now, as we move to the future of work, we're now talking more about diversity, equity, and inclusion, belonging. How do we get people connected together? And leadership changes. And this is, I think, a real pivotal change that not everybody understands what the impact of that's going to be. But it's not about leaders directing what to do. It's now about individuals and team members influencing each other and supporting each other to do what's best, for the overall team and for each other. And that changes the dynamics of how organizations, create structures and work together and lead each other and everything else. Next slide. So when we talk about teamwork, this is obviously a very provocative statement, but, when we talk about how do we get better teamwork in an organization, my challenge to get you to think is, stop everything you're doing to take care of your individual employees. And, not that you're not going to care, but it's, we put so much time and effort into individual performance management, individual goals. How do we look for the top 5% of individuals and put them in, a high potential growth track so to develop them? And in doing that, and in, I refer to it kind of as in babysitting our employees, we almost destroy the opportunity to create teamwork. So we need to get rid of all those programs and really focus all those resources and efforts and capabilities to put solutions in place that actually get your employees to help each other, support each other, coach each other, learn from each other, and really build higher performing teams. So one of the articles I've read, if you go to my LinkedIn, you'll see the whole article that describes this whole thing on teamwork. I have kind of a future of work group that people can join and read. The concept I wrote in this article was around, we've all heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where you have kind of the individual foundations of what people need. And I tried to transpose that into this idea that teams have the same hierarchy of needs. So if you want to create a culture in your company where, teams are self-directed and supporting each other and real active, actively, have this cohesive, trusting relationship, it doesn't happen. You can't just create it. You have to have these building blocks that you build on to actually get to this point where you have, team actualization, which is the team is reaching their full potential. And it's around compensating teams. And most companies don't even think about this and don't have any structure in place to compensate teamwork and teams supporting each other and letting teams dictate, who is the most helpful in building our team and accomplishing our team objectives. You need to have a foundation of team safety. Everybody's, read lots of details on psychological safety, and you need to have trust, and, people, know that their coworkers have their back, and you need to have that to be able to get, to the next levels, into these higher levels inside of a team. Collaboration, and this plays right into what Harbinger does, all the tools, the tech stack, the performance management tools, the learning management tools, the compensation tools, all of these collaboration tools need to be in place to get teams to be able to interact in a hybrid workforce, distributed workforce, whatever it may be. The fourth pillar there is team knowledge. So, teams need to be able to learn from each other. And this is different than the old way of, you go to an offsite training class or you read a book on something. This is really around, and I think you had a slide on it, one of your bullets was around this idea that, people have to learn on the job. People are not going to learn, people are not going to know how to do their job out of school or anything else. So there needs to be a much better way of people being vulnerable. Being able to ask for help, ask for assistance, ask for coaching, and almost encourage that, because when you teach other people inside of a team, you actually learn that much more about what it is you're teaching and are that much more committed to helping others and helping them be successful. Team connection is the fifth pillar in this hierarchy of needs. Connection is just, the idea that we're asking for support, asking for help, people feeling that trusting relationship to, have a best friend at work. I think all the data talks about, if you have 2 or 3 people inside of your coworkers that you enjoy being with and you would consider to be a best friend, your engagement level increases dramatically. Your, commitment to the company, to the, the team cult, to the company objectives just goes, that much higher. The sixth pillar is team recognition. So we do a really good job in most companies of recognizing individual contribution. We don't do a good job of recognizing team contribution, meaning how am I, supporting teamwork and team efforts to contribute to business outcomes. Usually it's a spot bonus to an individual. I don't see as many companies doing spot bonuses or goals or whatever to teams and team effort based on how well they contributed to the team activities. So that's the sixth one. And then the final one is reaching your full potential by not only becoming fully engaged in what's going on, but it's helping others become fully engaged. And that's kind of the big mind shift that needs to happen inside of organizations. It's not me being, it's not the company teaching the employee to do what needs to get done. It's every employee should feel like they need to help each other to become their best self and to help the team achieve what the company goals and objectives are. So that's the 7-pillar hierarchy of needs. If people have questions or thoughts or want to suggest anything or connect with me, please add comments or connect with me on LinkedIn if you'd like. Next slide. Another key theme that I've written about around HR technology is this idea of feedback. Most people are terrified by this, this interaction that we have where somebody says, "I'd like to give you some feedback." And there's lots written on it. We don't really, there's ways not to do it, which is, I think, how a lot of companies give feedback and distribute feedback. Let me write an annual performance review. And then I think there's, that I will call that the wrong way to do it. And then I think there's a right way to do it, which is try to create a better sort of process where people request feedback, ask for help, encourage feedback, and learn from each other and know that it's done in a trusting, supportive environment and culture. And kind of going to the technology side of that, and I don't see a lot of companies doing this very well. Feedback, in my opinion, needs to be disconnected completely from the whole performance conversation and even from some of the HR tech data and tech stack that we house inside of a company. And it should almost be a whole separate system and a whole separate tool that allows people to be honest and transparent and allow the employee to control what's said, who says it, who they can get feedback from, and whether they want to share that with their peers or their leadership or keep it private so that it really is a true personal one-on-one conversation between two people. Next slide. So here's kind of how I'm pushing this idea of eliminating the potential for emotional error, which is this trigger that says, I'm receiving feedback, halt everything, shut it down. I don't want to listen. I don't want to learn from this. I just want to walk away and go hide from all this. So feedback, we need to, first of all, start off with the expectation that we're all going to give feedback to each other, and it needs to be from people that you want. So you need to expect it. You need to ask people for help and support. I want to ask you to give me feedback on how I'm doing in this situation. You request it, and then it needs to be this private interaction. So as I shared before, it needs to be it shouldn't be controlled, and that information and the interaction should not be controlled by the employer itself. It really should be a private conversation between two individuals. The fifth item there, it says evaluate feedback. I don't see a lot of companies doing it. I'd love to see somebody create some new technology around this, but the idea that we evaluate feedback, meaning we rate the feedback that somebody gives to us, and you actually can then rank or evaluate who's good at giving feedback to each other inside of an organization, and almost give incentives to people to say the better you are at giving feedback and coaching, the more recognition you'll receive. And theoretically, if the leader is supposed to be real influential, that should be part of their compensation. And so the last item there is recognize influence. So those people who are good at coaching, teaching others should be recognized for that ability or strength. So that's a bit on feedback. So this is just kind of a summary of those steps on how to build a better feedback process, and how it will hopefully eliminate that immediate fight or flight reaction that most people have when a feedback conversation gets initiated. So let's go to the next slide.
That was your last slide.
Perfect. That's back to you.
All right, thank you. That was an excellent insight on teamwork, Mitch. Thank you very much. So just taking a cue from what Mitch mentioned, I think it's imperative for all of us to look at the employee experience, and I'm sure most of the companies today are focusing heavily on what kind of experience an employee has during his stint, maybe from start to finish within an organization. So an organizational culture, engagement, and employee brand proposition remains top priorities for 2023, and will continue even further beyond. And I think rather than focusing narrowly on engagement and culture, many leading organizations aim to improve the employee experience as a whole, and supported by the multitude of pulse feedback tools that Mitch was mentioning, all the wellness and fitness apps that they have rolled out, and of course the self-service portals that HR rolls out for their employees. I think nearly 80% of executives rated employee experience very important, 42% as important, 38%, and only 22% reported that their companies were excellent in building a differentiated employee experience. Now, that number in itself, the 22%, is pretty low. I think that needs to significantly move up, and anything less than 80% to 85% is completely, you're going to see, especially with the influx of millennials and Gen Z that we're talking about, people who are coming from diverse fields, people who are going to be working in remote locations, all of that. I think those attributes kept in mind, it's going to be only the organizational culture, the engagement, and the brand proposition from an organization standpoint that's going to matter for every employee. Why the employee is going to stick around or maybe quit in a year or two. I think 59% of survey respondents reported that they were not ready or kind of or only somewhat ready to address the employee experience challenge. These were companies, especially individual companies, that were surveyed, and that's an outcome of that particular survey. I think so paramount, again, taking to Mitch's point, I think employee experience is uncompromisable. So again, more, like you said, Mitch, I completely agree. I think more flexibility to employees. So another advantage in a hybrid working model where you give a more amount of liberty, where you expect a good amount of work-life balance for your employees, so that their contribution on the work that they're expected to deliver, perform, is far more higher. I think that reflects into an increased productivity. I think, of course, employers are looking at lower costs, and with this kind of hybrid models, and opportunity for in-person connection. I think that's paramount, Mitch, you mentioned about it, where people want to make connections, they want to grow along with their peers, their colleagues, and imbibe all those best practices within their work area by just sheer emulating their peers. And of course, time saving is something that is a part and parcel of the hybrid model. Now, coming back to this whole thing, the debate that we all started and the discussion that we all started about, what difference is technology going to bring, at the end of the day, and how we really need to monitor and monetize this whole technology affair from an HR standpoint. So I think there are some parameters that I've tried to encapsulate. What this means is, how fast employees get the technological information, and how fast they get to use that technology within an organization. Now, what predictive means is the technology intuitive? Is it hands-on? Is it maneuverable? Is it as an employee, can I really maneuver through the technology, or have to open multiple windows and so on and so forth, or it's just seamlessly takes me through an experience of it by itself? So I think, and then does it also recommend a lot of things that I need to go ahead of the information that I am looking for? Does it really even recommend beyond that information, in that whole process? Reflective is part and parcel, and think it is a part of, does the technology tell you what just happened? Very important, because, giving those right sense of alarms, or giving you those right alerts at a given point in time, so that, you make appropriate decisions and counter any challenge or any, adverse situation, within an organization. I think those, does the technology also tell you how the change matters to you as an employee in itself within the organization? I think that is also very important. So I think connectivity, again, well, needless to say, I think it's a no-brainer. Whether are you able to connect to all the apps? Are you able to connect to all the services within an organization? Are you well trained? Training is very important. Are you, getting that kind of an aid of being trained on a particular given technology, or a platform, or a dashboard for that matter? Is your dashboard responsive enough, so that, whatever action you're taking, is it just actually popping up those responses at an appropriate right time, or maybe at even for certain responses on a real-time basis? Is it adaptable, purely from a process that, can you make on-the-fly changes? Or is it rigid enough that, you really need to get back to the drawing board, or, the coding side of it, and then make those changes? So I think adaptability is paramount here. And does their technology have a sandbox? What did I do? Sorry. Oh. Here we are. Sorry about that.
There we go.
So yeah. So does it have a sandbox for me to play around as an employee? So that's the, those are the various technological adaptations that people are looking out for. And these are extremely helpful to engage your employees, within the organization, so that, all these factors can be taken care of.
I'd love to add one comment to that slide, if you don't mind me interjecting.
Yeah, please go ahead, Mitch.
Yeah. As I look at the whole marketplace right now, or where we've been and kind of how it's evolving, most of our HR tech stack has been built with kind of the HR leaders as the customer. So it's, what do they need to do their job? Let's build the technology to suit them, to help them, to give them what they need, help them predict things, pay their employees, evaluate performance, etc. We haven't spent as much time developing the technology for the employee, because the employee's not paying for it. It's being paid for by the employer, so it's what they want is what we build. But to really get the data to be more accurate and to interconnect and to sort of be valuable to not only HR but to the employee, we need to have the employee in mind and that employee experience. And you've been talking about that. And so as we create requirements, create new tools, not only do we need to have the voice of what does the HR organization need, we need to have the voice of what employees need, what's going to help them, what will make them want to use this and support this, and go to it every day, log in every day and use it, rather than just do it because they have to.
Oh, absolutely. Very well said, Mitch. Absolutely. I think that is something that, most organizations really need to look into.
Yep.
So Mitch spoke about the future of work, and of course, as we draw insights from the preferences and behaviors of the newest generations today, I think the work itself, the definition of work in itself is changing. I think it's going to be, Mitch, you mentioned this in your through your slides. It's going to be a person with many talents, interests, and areas of knowledge that companies are going to seek, rather than saying, oh, I need a React engineer and I need a it's going to be full stack moving forward. And then this is not restricted only to technology alone. I think it's going to be more of a full stack from a perspective of what other knowledge is this from a domain perspective this particular person is bringing to the table. What kind of people attributes is he bringing to the table? What are the typical diversity, equity, and inclusivity advantages that this particular employee is bringing to the table? I think companies are going to look at recruiting people with these attributes, and that's going to be one of the criteria while selection of an employee, as we move forward. And of course, not to forget in terms of how people are going to be evaluated is what kind of digital tools and technology skills that you're bringing, how comfortable you are with the analytics and data, what are your business management skills, design, how more creative you are at your workplace, what's it that you're doing, thinking out of the box, what is it that you're doing differently, and then that's going to ultimately benefit your work area rather than ultimately benefiting the company, of course, but at least your work area, what is that kind of suggestion, or what is that kind of creativity that you're bringing into your own workplace? So that's something that people are going to look at with given the fact that technology is anyways going to be as by default there. So we all use mobiles, laptops, various applications, various platforms, so everything is at your service. So then what is it that's going to really build and boost up your energy, your efficiency at your workplace, and thereby giving you that the contributing towards that deliverable. So I think that's any comments from your side, Mitch, on this future of work?
No, I mean, I would just add, it's not just one person. It's how do they contribute to this overall much more complex, interconnected job and work. And so as we're recruiting, one person is not going to know all this and be able to do all of this. It's how do we build teams of people who interact well together, support each other, and understand each other enough to leverage the strengths of each person in a group. And that's different than how we've been looking at teams and work historically.
Absolutely, Mitch. And then also taking a cue from the point you mentioned about, how are we evaluating people? I think at Harbinger in particular, I just want to share that, we have a wonderful mechanism where we're actually evaluating people in terms of giving and taking feedbacks, certainly, and giving suggestions for improvement, putting them through a lot of training modules as and where required, and then at the end of the day, drawing up a conclusion, and it's a very transparent process. So it is incumbent on me to evaluate my co-worker. It is incumbent on him also to evaluate me. So there are like these cross-reference performance evaluations that take place, and they're pretty transparent. And at the end of the day, they are pushed back to each employee, in terms of how just in case to better his work area. So Harbinger does follow that pretty exhaustively. Lovely. So what do we have in store? All right. So we have key takeaways. So a quick recap of what we spoke about. I think we talked about preparing for the Gen Z and the millennial influx. We said, let's embrace artificial intelligence and analytics at an early stage. Makes sense, completely makes sense for companies to do that. Digital tools and technology skills are here to stay. of course, no-brainer. Teamwork and collaboration can yield best results. That's what Mitch spoke about at length. And of course, you can connect with Mitch offline in case of any questions, queries, or any suggestions that you may have to his model, overall model. And get the best from hybrid work models. It's become the new normal today. So I think companies have to wear multiple thinking hats in terms of how they're going to get the best out of these hybrid models. And then, of course, employee experience is paramount. It's uncompromisable. So I think that's what we had in store today. To present. What do we have next? Okay, we have a little bit about Harbinger. So won't take more time around this, but just to leave some facts and figures with you. So we are like a 3-decade-old organization, been there, have been doing, for years, we've been doing a lot of product development, product engineering for various ISVs, startups, mid-sized tech outfits, and HR tech as our focus area. We don't do anything else other than HR tech. So, we're not like an all-time sundry shop. We are focused on what we do, and we can build products grounds up like bespoke, or we can help integrate with products that are out there, whether it's ATSs, job boards, or even sheer third-party products. In the bargain, I think over a period in time, we've built and developed around 500 plus products. We have, a huge experience of having serviced 400 plus customers. And I think as we talk, I think we have quite a few of those still active with us. Our engagement with our customer has been for years long. And we're about 850 people based out of India. And we do have our US offices in Redmond, Washington, Dublin, Philadelphia, and New York. We spoke about DE and I, Mitch, and 43% of our workforce is women.
That's great.
And 40% of our executive team again comprises of women. So we're pretty proud to always talk about this, and we're trying to better these numbers as we, as many more years unfold for us. And I think we've been appreciated, accredited in various forums through various certifications. And I think the HR within Harbinger is doing an excellent job that way. The industries that we serve are human resources, e-learning, digital publishing, education, and high tech. And the little surprise item for today's webinar is a little takeaway. It's the HR Tech ebook. This is the first time this is being launched here at this Power Hour session. I think for any further information and trends, please do check it out. I'll go ahead and paste the link to this kind of ebook in our chat session, and that will be after our question and answers. And I think what it encompasses is, we've tried to cover a lot of trends and in the HR tech, and then the future of HR, the future of work. All of that is a part of this. So you should be going through this, and you should be downloading your copy. I will just go ahead and paste the link for everyone's benefit. So I open up the forum for any questions that you may have for me and Mitch. So there's a question saying, does people analytics have a good return on investment? Mitch, any thoughts there?
Does it have a return on investment? I think the world of how much data we're collecting about people and what we can do with that data and how we can leverage it to, put cohesive teams and get better results out of the people in our workforce. it's a major undertaking. You know, you need to have data literacy, you need to have analytics tools. There are amazing insights that you can glean about your people, about your workforce, and really recognize their capabilities, what they can do. But you need to have the tools in place, and it can't be this old archaic Excel spreadsheet. It needs to be, there's much more robust analytics tools out there that can help you. It takes time. I mean, I've seen some very large people analytics teams inside of organizations, doing all kinds of analysis. Does it have a return? Absolutely. You need to be asking the right questions, and know what you want from the team and know what you're trying to get out of it. Otherwise, you can over evaluate a whole lot of stuff.
Absolutely, Mitch. In fact, I was going to take a cue from that point. It depends purely in terms of, what data you're collecting and whether the data is real time.
Yep.
So, and of course, like you said, I think, in terms of if you have the appropriate tools to massage that data and present it quickly, I think it'll have a very high return on investment. In terms of taking those corrective and coercive actions, and timely actions for either resignation or employee pain or any other issue that an employee would have. So I think it makes sense to certainly embrace analytics for people.
Yeah,
of course.
And there's two sides of it. Get the data, collect it, and evaluate it, and then evaluate it and take action on it and do something about it. And if you don't have both sides,
it's futile.
We all have survey fatigue. We've all filled out surveys and nothing happens, and then you just stop doing it because nothing will change.
So true.
Same with people analytics. Collect the data, answer the questions, and then tell people, here's what we're doing to try to change because you told us.
So true.
Great question, though. Anything else? This has been a great conversation. I appreciate the invite.
I likewise, Mitch. Thank you. I mean, any other question? I am not seeing any other question. Oh, there's one here. Okay. It says, wants to understand if HR tech can help organizations stop the quiet quitting of employees. Oh my God. Okay. I wonder how that can be solved. The quiet quitting.
I would challenge what we mean by quiet quitting. So I think it's different for some people. I think you can sit there and say it's disengagement. It's, or it could be I'm, quietly leaving and doing something completely different. There are bigger issues in quiet quitting. I think it is about how you're engaging people, how you're encouraging them to do stuff. It's not going to go away completely. I think we definitely can impact it by how much each person feels like you care about them and want them to succeed and want to help them help the company, and you're helping each other. It's not going to go away.
Sure.
But I think we definitely can make a difference by building better, cultures inside of companies.
Absolutely. And with the sheer fact of just reaching out.
Yep.
So I think, and identifying, what kind of help or what kind of aid a particular employee is looking out for. So I think just with the sheer fact of reaching out to these employees, I think perhaps can reduce, but I'm not sure whether that's going to eradicate the entire point.
We've experienced a really interesting trend. I mean, it's not widespread, but there are people who they're taking on new jobs or new roles, and they're literally kind of doing two jobs at the same time, not even thinking that that's a problem. We kind of have evolved into this gig economy and expand what you do, and I can do multiple projects at the same time. People don't even know that it's a problem. So I think that's part of the problem with quiet quitting. You need to actually tell people, we're asking you to be wholly committed to our company and our what we're doing. But that's not widespread. I think that's just part of millennial generation or younger generations not really understanding what they've signed up to do.
So right, Mitch. Absolutely.
But an interesting question. I think we'll see more of it, and there's very unique things going on these days. Good. Well, I appreciate your invite. It's been a great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mitch. I appreciate your time too, and thank you all the participants. I think we hope this has been a fruitful session for you, and we look forward to you attending many more of those with us.
Thank you.
With that, I'll go ahead and close and stop sharing and quit the webinar. Thank you.